Hi, hello. Welcome to my review of this new A24 movie, Past Lives. This is a new romance drama directed by Celine Song, and it's about two people. One of them a woman, Nora, played by Greta Lee, and one of them Hae Sung, played by Theo Yo. And these two are childhood best friends. Basically, they grew up together until one of them, Nora, is immigrating to America with her family, and so they basically live a whole life separately without each other until they finally meet again many years later. So when it comes to keeping up with new movies or like generally getting some information about movies, I mainly use Letterboxd simply because it's like the most accessible in comparison to IMDb or Metacritic, and I get really interested when movies are like instantly very well received. Every now and then there are some movies that when they come out and they don't even have a lot of views already, they are instantly like so well rated that they would instantly pop up in the top 250 movies on Letterboxd. And movies like that are, for example, Oppenheimer or Everything Everywhere All at Once or Spider-Verse. And when I watch movies like these, I try to be a little cautious because I don't want to disappoint myself because of the hype. Like in general, when there's movies coming out that are really well rated, I just kind of try to keep my expectations a little bit low. And the same was the case with this movie because this movie instantly had like a 4.3 rating on Letterboxd. And right now, while recording this review, this movie is on the 127th spot on Letterboxd. So it definitely has a lot of hype behind it. And I am very lucky to say that this hype is completely deserved because this is a great movie and one of the best of the year. I can already tell that. One of the best things about this whole movie is that it's very simple. Again, this is a story about two people simply meeting after a very long time. Something that happens very often in life. Like it's one of the most normal things to have a friend or have a girlfriend or whatever, and you kind of just stop talking, not because you don't like each other anymore, but that's simply how it is, or meeting up with a friend after a very long time. And that's something that happens every day in life. It's super normal, and this movie exactly tries to capture that in the most realistic way possible because this is really a movie just capturing life as it is. In general, there are a lot of things in movies, in basically every single movie, that couldn't really happen because that's just how movies are. Movies are there to tell stories that are like extravagant. They don't have to be realistic to be good movies. But some movies every now and then just come along and they feel like the most realistic and authentic portrayal of real life that you can find. The best examples of the last years are movies like The Worst Person in the World or Sound of Metal. And this one is exactly that. Everything fits perfectly. It's kind of like you are just watching real people. Like this is not a movie that has been shot on a daily schedule of shooting scenes on different locations. It feels like it's just a camera following two people who are real persons. That's an incredible achievement for any movie. The closest thing to like unrealistic in this movie is one conversation in this whole movie that is very meta in a way. It's the boyfriend of Nora in the movie, just talking about what if this was a movie. And this story would end up with them like separating because he would be the evil boyfriend in this story if this was a movie. Conversations like that only really work in comedies because they are trying to make fun of the fact that this is a movie. And yeah, definitely this is the type of conversation in a movie that would fit to this one meme where it says at the top when a writer writes a story about a writer, and then it's just this picture of best employee of the month from Hot Fuzz. Like it's exactly that. But to be honest, even this scene in this movie feels like it's not unrealistic. Like it still fits because I mean the characters are writers, and that's a normal thing to think about, especially for a writer. Like this is the most realistic way to have a conversation like this in a movie. Definitely. And again, that's what I really appreciate about this movie is that it feels so authentic and realistic. Like after just a very short time, I felt fully invested in all of the characters. And not just the main couple, there's also again the boyfriend of the main character. And just like he said himself in the story, he would be the evil boyfriend who you really don't care about. You really just want to see the two main characters come together, and the boyfriend that she's been together with for like 7 years, just like out of the picture. That's everything you want. Because of that reason, because this is basically the normal cliched type of story you would expect from a movie like this, it kind of feels very refreshing that we actually managed to care about the main character's boyfriend so much. Like the first scene that I felt really emotionally invested in what was happening was a scene that involved him, which I did not expect at all. I thought he was so great, and even though he was the third wheel in a way in the story, he was still like a very important emotional part of this film, which I appreciated a lot. One thing that I also really appreciated about this movie is the fact that it's, even though it has a story, much more about like little moments in life, because again it tries to capture life in the most realistic and authentic way possible. And even though it tells a story about like real people, this movie kind of pays attention to the details and little quirks that characters have. Every character has their little characterizations that make them so much more realistic. The best examples that come in my mind are, for example, Haesung taking very awkward pictures. Like, he's a very awkward and shy person in a way, and so when he is in America for the first time, of course he wants some pictures of like the Statue of Liberty, and then he just stands there very awkwardly and looks like this, and it just looks so stupid. And it's little moments like that that just make this character feel so much more realistic. Or one of my favorite moments was simply the three of them standing together in their apartment, and one of them asks, "Okay, well, what do you want to eat?" And in his very broken accent, Haesung just says, "Pasta." Like, that was one of the funniest moments in the whole movie. It wasn't a comedic scene, but it was just a very cute and awkward little thing that he does. Like, I actually smiled because of that scene, simply because it felt like such an authentic but wholesome little moment between these characters. I think it's also super interesting that this movie has like a very happy tone, at least to me. Like, there's a lot of emotional scenes, real struggles. Like, the story itself is actually like a really sad story, but to be honest, I never felt sad because of the way this movie handles this subject of getting out of touch with friends and meeting friends again and living your whole life without the people you cared for at some point. Like, it has such a mature and realistic and adult way of looking at these topics and problems that it kind of just doesn't make me feel sad, even though there are literally scenes where I in real life would just cry because it just, like, it feels so realistic. And that's why I think this movie has such a interesting tone. It's just such a beautiful movie with scenes, like I already mentioned, that are just like genuinely happy, but also the way it looks. Even New York City looks beautiful and happy in this movie, which I did not expect. Like, I didn't think that New York City could look romantic in a movie. I always picture New York City as a very dark and like awful place, especially in movies like Taxi Driver, Ghostbusters, Uncut Gems. Like, New York City always looks kind of bad and not fun, to be honest. But in this movie, it feels romantic. It feels like Before Sunrise. By the way, and this movie has a lot of influence from Before Sunrise, it feels like. Especially this type of story that is taking place over multiple decades. That's basically the Before trilogy, but packed into one movie. Some other things that I want to mention. First of all, this movie looks beautiful. Like I already said, it even makes New York City look good. But there's also like a lot of very beautiful and well set up shots. For example, one of my favorite shots in this movie is where Haesung just sits on a bed, and the frame is like very wide, so you have him on the right side, and on the left side of him, it's just his shade on the wall. Instantly realize that this guy is kind of sad because he's alone, because literally there's a shadow sitting next to him. And it's shots like these that manage to say a lot without the characters saying anything, and they work really, really well in this movie. But also, the acting is like very, very, very good. Like I already said, the actor who played the boyfriend, John Magaro, he's really great. He really made me feel for the character. But also the other two, like, they are just like such a good trio of characters. They have such good chemistry. And one thing that I read that was especially like a very interesting tactic from the director was to kind of keep the actors always very separate from each other when it was not about shooting. So that when the characters finally meet in the movie, that's also like for some of the actors like the first scene that they actually met each other on set, which is like such an interesting thing to think about. Like, it's a very genuine reaction because of that they show in the camera, because it's simply the first time they actually see each other on the set. So you really can feel that there's a lot of care that was put into the story and into the movie in general. Everything feels like it's just filming two people meeting each other and just talking like they were real people. It feels like that, but it's obviously not, because it's very well thought out, and I really, really appreciate this movie for that. This movie could have been a rom-com, and it could have been kind of forgettable, but because they chose to make this story so mature and so realistic, it feels so much like so much more, and that's why it also resonates with so many people probably. Like, this movie is still so highly rated after a few months, and that's definitely impressive, and it also resonated a lot with me. One last thing I want to mention that I kind of forgot is the fact that this movie is basically 90% Korean, and I didn't really notice it in the movie, but I feel like a movie like this would be so much less effective if it was just mostly English for the whole time, but because they actually use the Korean language so much in this movie, I feel like this movie feels a lot more authentic. Again, it's one more thing that adds to the authenticness of this movie. And yeah, I hope that doesn't like turn people away from this movie because it's still incredible. And so this movie is incredibly impressive. I did not expect to like this movie so much. It's a slice of life story executed in the best way possible. Everything basically works about this movie. It's kind of a dick rating, but yeah, this is a 9.5 out of 10. I still love this movie so much. This is, yeah, one of the best movies of the year. Easily. I think it's incredible. Please watch it. Please watch it. It's amazing. So thank you for watching. Go watch Past Lives, and I guess see you next time.